Hey, this is Tom Gresham, and this is an experiment of sorts. This is for our podcasters out there, the folks who like to listen to gun talk through the podcast. My dad, I guess I should tell you a little bit about my dad, Gresham, one of the best-known gun writers of, a previous generation for sure. He was the shooting editor of Sports Afield magazine for, I think, about 27 years. He wrote for most of the major outdoor magazines, Field and Stream, Sports Afield, Outdoor Life, the NRA's American Rifleman, Guns and Ammo, and dozens of others. Of course, he was the host, one of the field hosts of the American Sportsman TV show. He was one of the Miller Lite, Tastes Great, Less Filling all-stars on those commercials for a dozen years. We put together a book of his writings some years ago. It's called Grits on Guns. And mostly they're a collection of his columns from Sports Afield. And I thought it would be interesting to read a few of those columns from the Grits on Guns book. As much as anything, just for historical perspective, to see what was being said 20 or 30 years ago. How much has changed? How much is the same? To start out, I want to read a piece that was actually originally published in March of 1987. So keep that in mind as I read this piece. The AR-15 really had not made much or actually any dent on the firearms world. People weren't paying any attention to it in 1987, really. And remember, my dad was a hunter primarily, not so much a shooter, definitely not a tactical person. His love was hunting. So for our first piece out of Grits on Guns, here is a column he wrote that's just labeled Grits' Gun Battery. You might not need all those guns, as the keeper of the budget is wont to say, but some are certainly indispensable to the well-armed hunter. How many do most of us really need if we hunt most of the game in this country, or intend to hunt someday? Better yet, how few? What's the least number of firearms that will adequately serve as a complete battery for the average man, and what should they be? Sorting out such a selection is a tremendously enjoyable pastime, and done on an esoteric, imaginative plane or on a purely practical one. I've done both. Often, some of my lists were a bit beyond the pale, replete with names like Rigby and Fabry and Parker. But I have one for real array, which wouldn't leave me pleading that I'm undergunned, or poorly gunned. It may apply to your situation, or it may not, but considering the options I choose should help you define yours. Most of us, if the truth be known, can get by quite nicely with just 3 long guns. Here are the ones I'd choose for my gun rack, and my reasons for doing so. Number 1, rifle, 22 rimfire. Fun to shoot, inexpensive ammo, perfect for learning to shoot and for maintaining your shooting skill, excellent for small game, and for varmints of modest size at moderate range. A good survival gun. Another reason for including this one, of course, is that it borders on being un-American not to own a 22. If I could have only one, it would be an autoloader with open sights. Number 2, rifle, 7mm Remington mag caliber. This is one of the most versatile big game calibers on the market. Superb choice for deer, antelope, black bear, sheep, goats, caribou, and with well-constructed bullets for elk and moose. Trajectory characteristics make this an excellent long-range caliber. Because of the popularity of this caliber, there is available an excellent array of factory ammunition and good bullets for reloading. Recoil is sharp but not overpowering, which encourages practice. I'd choose a bolt action with a synthetic stock weighing not more than 7.5 pounds with scope. Number 3, shotgun, 12 gauge over and under, 28-inch barrels with 3-inch chambers and a screw-in choke system weighing less than 8 pounds. This is a compromise, of course, for the guy who likes to shoot both upland birds and waterfowl. I don't prefer to tote a gun that heavy after quail, but it isn't all that bad. and I certainly don't like to push 3-inch magnums at geese through a lightweight. There are now available superb light loads, which, with the appropriate tubes installed, make such an over and under as this a most adequate upland gun, yet it is still excellent on waterfowl with the right combinations. Actions. Choose the type of action that suits you and your shooting conditions. For my centerfire rifle, I choose a bolt action. This is largely a personal preference, although the bolt is generally more accurate and more reliable than most other actions. Having said that, I urge you not to dismiss semi-autos and lever actions as always being inaccurate, which tends to be a relative term when you're shooting at a deer at less than 100 yards, as is often the case in much of the country. Some autoloaders, in fact, are very accurate. Single shots and double rifles are specialty items and can be desirable if they fit the temperament and the needs of the individual hunter. Semi-autos are usually reliable in function, but that wee doubt rules them out for me on hunts where trophy opportunities might be scarce. For my .22 rimfire, on the other hand, I select the autoloader. It's my favorite plinking gun, and is great fun on squirrels and on running cottontails and jackrabbits. Options. You say you live and hunt in the East, the Midwest, or the South, are wrapped up in deer hunting and never care whether you go west or not? The centerfire rifle that's best for you may be that lever action 30-30 or autoloader 30-06. Both of them solid favorites and solid performers. That Auto .06, in addition, shouldn't be discounted for anything in North America's big game line, with the probable exception of the big bears. Many who hunt in short-range deer country, we should keep in mind, do so with flat-shooting scoped bolt actions, which have a lot of muscle. My 7 mag is just as proficient in such conditions as it is in the western mountains. The idea, of course, is to tailor your choices to the kinds of gunning you prefer and the kinds of terrain in which you do them. The possibilities and variations are endless, but the categories themselves can be fairly well defined. Let's see how that shakes down. Number 1, a plinker small game survival firearm, caliber .22 rimfire or .22 rimfire magnum. Number 2, varmint rifle, bolt action or single shot rifle in one of these calibers, .22 250, .222, .223, or .220 Swift. Number 3, deer rifle, for eastern hunting, one of these calibers in an appropriate action, .30-30, .375 Win, 6mm Remington, .243 Winchester, .270 Win, .280 Remington, 7mm08 Remington, .308 Winchester, 30-06, 7mm Remington mag, 300 Win mag. For western hunting, including antelope, sheep, goats, caribou, a bolt action in any of these calibers except the .30-30 and .375 Win. All are adequate for black bear. Number 4, elk rifle. A bolt action in .30-06, 7mm Rem mag, 300 Win mag, 338 Win mag, 8mm Rem mag. All excellent for moose, with the latter pair good choices for brown bear and grizzly. The comparable Weatherby calibers, it should be emphasized, are excellent in all big game rifles, with the 270 Weatherby mag, 300 Weatherby mag, and 340 Weatherby mag being especially effective. Number 5, Africa, heavy rifle. 4.58 Win mag has become the standard big rifle for dangerous game, but the .375 H&H hangs on as a close second and an even better all-round caliber. Get a bolt action. Number 6, shotgun, for waterfowl. A 12-gauge pump or auto chambered for 3-inch shells with screw-in choke tubes. Although I prefer the feel and balance of doubles, they are awkward to reload in the cramped confines of a duck blind or a goose pit, and the third shot of pump and auto is frequently an advantage in quickly anchoring crippled birds. The advent of required steel shot makes the selection of any gauge smaller than a 12 virtually academic, since they presently can't carry sufficient payload to be effective except at short ranges. Number 7, shotgun for upland birds. 12 or 20 gauge in the action of your choice. I prefer an over and under weighing not more than 7¼ pounds in either gauge. There are many pumps and autos in this weight range, so again, your choice. Again, screw-in chokes are an advantage in coping with various field conditions. Although a 3-inch chamber isn't necessary in the 12 gauge, it can be an advantage in the 20 gauge under some conditions. Number 8, shotgun for goose shooting, particularly where steel shot is required and where ranges are apt to be long. 10 gauge Magnum. Although the recoil is heavy, especially in double barrels, nothing approaches this number in effectiveness on geese with steel shot. The Ithaca Mag 10 autoloader is excellent, one of a kind, and its gas-operated system makes recoil tolerable. 3 long guns we could live with, but I'd be more comfortable with 5. If 4 were the magic number, I'd add a 20 gauge shotgun, number 7. 5 would also let me spring for a heavy rifle, number 5, and it would be in the .375 H&H Magnum caliber. Although this is more than half a century old, it remains one of the very best, even today, for really big game. It's an excellent choice for African dangerous game at close range, but it's also sufficiently flat shooting for 200 to 300 yard shots on smaller game, which would make it superb for elk and moose in North America. It could well be the very best of all for brown bear and grizzly if the shooter can handle the considerable recoil. March 1987. Obviously some things have changed. 10 gauge, the Ithaca Mag 10, great shotgun. I think the thing was 11 pounds or something. It was huge. Had one of those. It was a lot of fun. Got rid of it. That was even more fun. Some of the calibers that we think are popular or great now aren't even mentioned then. Well, that was quite some time ago, 1987. Kind of fun to read about or hear about the transition to steel shot back when it was still fairly new, and talk about, well, if you have to use steel shot, you would go with this. And absolutely no mention whatsoever of the 3.5-inch 12 gauge because it wasn't around then. Frankly, I don't think much of it even today. Give me a good 3-inch mag gun and it'll do pretty much everything you need it to do on waterfowl with the very good loads. Because remember, the loads we have now, the non-toxic loads we have today, are so much better than steel shot we had back in the mid-'80s. Hey, do me a favor, would you? If you enjoy this little passage from Grits on Guns, let me know. I can certainly do some more. There are a lot of chapters in there, and I think it's an interesting window into a different time. And we have chapters from at least the 70s on. And frankly, you're getting kind of a view of a gun writer who was active through the 50s, 60s, 70s, and into the 80s. So you're getting a look back and really the experience of someone who lived, hunted, and got to really test and shoot a lot of the guns from a half century ago. So anyway, that's Grits on Guns. If you also want to know more about Grits, my dad, you can Google him, Grits Gresham, or on YouTube you can actually see some of the old Miller Lite commercials that he did. They're still pretty darn funny. Hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for bearing with me, and you take care.